Hello, good morning and welcome to Ireland AM on Virgin Media 1.
From four-wheel drive to driving your partner wild, we've got lots in store between now and 10 o'clock.
Yes, now if you happen to be taking your car on holidays this summer, we'll be telling you everything you need to know about driving abroad, from ferry costs to insurance.
We've also got a new BMW car out there that is insane. And it's raining outside, but I really want to get in it, so hopefully
Tommy, we might be able to do it. So Tommy is finding all of the umbrellas so we can cover the car.
I'm just taking a GoPro and I'm just going to take for a spin. Also on the show, singing sensation Gabrielle talked breaking through with her song Dreams 30 years ago, which is incredible. Plus becoming Adele's favourite, well, she is Adele's favourite singer. And
we've been listening to her all morning.
She's got bangers,
yeah. Banger after banger after banger.
Really good tunes.
Can't wait to talk to her. And also one of our guests teaches couples and singletons how to have more fun between the sheets. Sex educator Jenny Keane. We haven't talked to her in a while. She will be here after 9 to make this man go puce. See this colour?
Cue the red
on his face.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
Embarrassing. Alan, what else have we got coming up this morning?
Well, their Love Island journey was far from plain sailing, but life on the outside is sweet for Tasha Gori and Andrew LePage, and we're going to be getting their verdict on this season's Love Island. Plus, listen to this. We've a Filipino breakfast bap in the kitchen, and we're yuck or yum. Oh, yum. And we're keeping it comfy on the catwalk. Now, Derek is in his home city this morning. What's the plan for you today, Derek?
Yes, Al, live down here in my home turf in Limerick here this morning, and it is bucketing right down across the country out there this morning. Heavy spills across the island, but it will brighten up as the day goes on. But we're down here in Limerick over the next couple of hours. Of course, All-Ireland final fever building into the weekend. Limerick taking on the Cats. Of course, we'll be in Kilkenny tomorrow. This morning, we're heading out to the local hurling club here in Patrickswell. Can Limerick make it 4 in a row? I'm a little bit biased, but here's hoping so. What do you think, Murd?
I'm going to say yes. 100%. I have the green ready, the outfit ready for Monday morning. Ready to go.
It's here. I have the green as well. It's here. On.
Well done. Fair play to you. Are you going to the match?
Not biased at all. Well, hopefully I'll be there, yeah. Love the hurling final.
Who are you going
Brilliant.
for?
And a neutral.
Sure, yeah, that's it. We'll be chatting to Derek throughout the morning, as always. Right now, it's time to go over to the Virgin Media News Hub and say hello for the first time this morning to Aisling Roach.
Thanks, Myrne. Good morning. It's emerged that renewals of TV licences fell by a quarter in the first week of July compared to the same period last year. The figures are the first indication that the controversy surrounding RTE has led to people holding off on a new payment.
A common response among politicians in the last month is that the controversy surrounding the financial affairs of RTE and undisclosed payments to presenter Ryan Tubridy would deter people from renewing their TV licences. The first figures now released by the Department of Media appear to bear that out. Over 13,500 people renewed their TV licence in the first week of July last year. But the figure for the same week this year is just over 10,000, a drop of around a quarter. And while the sales of new licences are usually influenced by other factors, that rate has dropped by an even bigger margin. Nearly 2,000 licences were sold in the first week of July last year. This year the figure is 1,165, a drop of 40%. By comparison, the figures for June, before the RTE controversy hit its peak, were effectively unchanged compared to the year earlier. The figures were supplied to Media Committee member Brendan Griffin, who said RTE and the Media Minister will need a contingency plan to address the impact of falling licence fee income. Gavin Riley, Virgin Media News.
Ireland is becoming warmer and wetter, according to a new study by Met Éireann. The findings show an increase in air temperature, rainfall and sunshine from 91 to 2020. Temperatures are higher across the country for all seasons, and there's 5% more hours of sunshine. Europe's highest temperature records are forecast to be broken this week as an intense heatwave continues to grip the continent. Meanwhile, a global record is expected to be set in California in the coming days.
Tourists in Rome bake in the heat as Italian health authorities intensified weather warnings this week. Countries across the continent are being swept by an intense heat wave, with the European Space Agency saying temperatures could approach or even surpass the European record of 48.8 degrees. In Kosovo, the streets of the capital Pristina were nearly empty as the Weather Office issued a red warning for extreme heat. The searing temperatures there are expected to peak tomorrow, with forecasts of 42 degrees. Several cities in Montenegro are also under advisory, while emergency services are on high alert for forest fires. The intense heat is being felt in the United States also. Death Valley National Park in California predicts the region might top 54 degrees. The area has long been known as the hottest place on Earth, since the highest temperature ever recorded was here in 1913 at 56.6 degrees Celsius. The meteorological community will be keeping an eye on the thermostat here in Death Valley to see if that incredible record will be matched. Hannah Lamass, Virgin Media News.
Investigations are continuing into a crash at the Sligo Stages rally on Sunday that claimed the lives of two competitors. Driver Jean MacDonald from County Cavan and navigator Darragh Maguire from Fermanagh were killed when their car struck a wall. Post-mortem examinations were carried out at Sligo University Hospital yesterday evening, while Gardaí are seeking any footages or images from the scene to assist their inquiries.
Despite the best efforts of Connacht Motoring Club, and this rally passed by our house, and I seen the efforts they made to keep both people and property safe, and we all felt that everything possible that could be done was done. But I welcome the fact that there's an investigation by An Garda Síochána and by Motorsport Ireland, because I feel we need to get to the bottom of why this tragic accident happened. And if lessons is to be learned, well then they can be learned.
The bridge linking Russia to Crimea has partially reopened a day after it was attacked. A couple were killed and their daughter injured in the attack, which Russia blamed on drones launched by Ukraine. It comes as Russia refused to extend a deal to export grain from Ukraine ports, but denied that this was retaliation. The move has once again raised fears over global food supplies. Finally, in the US, the Mississippi Police Department got an unusual emergency call over the weekend for a camel on the loose. Clyde, the camel, lives on a farm with bison and zebra, but he was found strolling outside his enclosure. Clyde appeared to be really interested in the deputy's hat, so they used that to lead him back to his home.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
Thank you, Chair, and a very good morning. We're live down here in Patrickswell in County Limerick, right across the Moray. Of course, big match this weekend, All-Ireland final Sunday kicking off. Limerick taking on Kilkenny. We're going to be paying a visit to the local hurling club here in Patrickswell Village to give you a little bit of a flavour, the build-up and the excitement into the big game this Sunday. So that's all to come over the next wee while. Anyway, we're on to the 18th of July. Let's take a look at weather now with Rhoda McIntyre with us on cameras. We're in the heart of summer. It feels like we're in the middle of winter out there this morning, because it is bucketing rain across the country, especially across the eastern half of the island into Ulster, Leinster, through the Midlands, through the southeast. Now beginning following that heavy rain late last night into this morning through parts of Galway, Mayo, here in Limerick and down in Cork. In fact, beginning to brighten up bit by bit. Still plenty of showers, but not as heavy as we've seen over the last couple of hours now in those light variable breezes. Now, right across today, that system of rain, that system of showers will begin to edge out into the Irish Seas. So bit by bit, thankfully, we're going to see an improvement as the day goes on. That mixture of bright spells with some cloud cover to take us right across the end of the day. Top values again on the muggy side at 17 to 20 degrees. And tonight then it'll all settle down. Good dry clear skies for most areas with some scattered showers to take us through tonight into your Wednesday morning. In fact, a brighter picture as we work our way into the hump of the week with overnight lows there back to 11 to 15 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in a wet Patrickswell in Limerick at the moment. We'll be back again live at 10:35.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
It's time now to take a look at this morning's papers. We'll start with the Irish Times. Its headline: Inquiry team denied access to children's hospital site. The timeline for completion of the hospital could slip after more breakdown in communication between Project Board and the builders. Unbelievable.
RTE loses $1 million as licence fee renewals plummet by 30%. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. As RTE grapples with an ongoing financial scandal, the number of people failing to pay their TV licences increases. The Department of Media reveal a fall in almost 6,000 people compared to last year when more than 15,000 licences were issued.
Same story, the TV licence revolt begins. That's on the Daily Mail. Figures show that in the first week of July, the number of people paying the licence fee has fallen by 22%. Former Fine Gael Minister Brendan Griffin said these figures indicate a funding crisis for RTE if a contingency plan is not put in place.
Mayor Simmerly goes with TV licence flee.
The Examiner leads with real threat from China interference. Ireland faces a threat of economic espionage and academic interference as agencies and individuals linked to the Chinese state use money and influence to penetrate academia to ensure its international narrative is advanced and suppress criticism.
The Star leads with roof justice for Kin Chief. The Criminal Assets Bureau have seized a luxury home in Garnstown, County Dublin, as part of a $1.4 million case against senior Kinahan member Ross Browning.
The Herald also goes with a kick in the paddocks for cartel thug. The cab seized includes the Chestnut Lodge cottage where Ross Browning's mother Judy Conway has been living, as well as horse paddocks and an indoor show jumping arena.
And finally, the Sun's front page. Nation divided on Tubbs, RTE future. A poll conducted by the Sun shows that 50% of its readers believe Ryan Tubridy's career is over, and 40% of people say that Kevin Backhurst should let him stay at RTE.
Just on that Irish Times story, the inquiry team into the Children's Hospital were not allowed in. It's going to cost almost $2 billion, and only 27 rooms out of 3,000 have been completed.
Well, it's meant to be 700 million. It's now potentially 2 billion.
And they're not allowed in to look. What is going on? It's absolutely mad, that story. We'd love to hear from you, as always, 0896 111 111. It's just flabbergasting. Coming up, we're actually going to be hearing the story of a Galway man who lost his leg in a farm accident.
We're going to be discussing farm safety and Farm Safety Week after this break. You're very welcome back to the show. Now, on average, 19 people die from farm-related accidents on average every year in this country.
Here to discuss why it's so important to prioritise farm safety, we are joined by Alice Doyle from the Irish Farmers Association, Peter Gorey, who lost his leg in a farm accident. This was back in 2009, and Martin Hayden, who was Minister for State with special responsibility for farm safety. Thank you all so much for being here with us this morning. I think, first of all, Peter, we have to start with you, because you were a farmer for years and years and years. What happened?
Back in 2009, I suppose, like after the crash of the building, I took up more farm work and kind of prioritising the farm, and went up farming one Saturday with my 10-year-old son, and basically cut the waterproof section off the overalls because it got ripped during the day. And in the evening, when I pulled the dyke feeder out of the shed, I hooked it up to the back of the tractor. The power shaft that was on it is the long straight bar that runs between the back of the tractor and the machine. Yeah. There was no cover on it. And I heard a knock coming from inside the dyke feeder, hopped down off the tractor, left my 10-year-old son sitting on the seat beside me. And as I was walking around the back of the tractor, I decided I'd change the hydraulic lines. Pulled out the 4 hydraulic lines, shoved them in the correct sequence, and then I went to stand back, and I noticed at that stage I couldn't feel the ground, excuse me, with the left leg. And at that stage, it just caught me and threw me over on the ground on the other side.
What caught you?
The power shaft. Basically, because the power shaft they're either square, rectangular, or star-shaped. And as they rotate, they create a vacuum. And 7 foot of rope will be wrapped around it within 1 second. You know, and my loose piece of clothing, because I left a small tail on the side of the overalls, was only about 100 mil, 4 inches long, probably even less. And that just got wrapped in, and the overalls were too good, and it just caught me and took the leg.
It's frightening, and how it can happen so fast as well. And this is why Farm Safety Week is this week, why we're here trying to discuss and encourage farmers to be more aware and to be more conscious of this. Even when you look at 45% of farming accidents come with heavy machinery or quads. How important is it
This week is really, really important. Farm safety is an all-year-round event, really. We should be looking after it every morning, every time we go out into that yard. We should be checking for safety. But in July every year, we highlight it for 1 week because, believe it or not, July is the month of the year when the highest amount of farm accidents actually take place. Now, that's strange. It may seem strange, but some of it is due to the fact there's a lot of work going on the farm at this time of the year. Children are on the farm, you know, during holidays, whatever. So we highlight it during this week. We ask people to take extra time to look at safety in the yard, even though it is a year-round event, and we really want to emphasise that it should be a priority all year round.
And I'm just wondering about that because I think an awful lot of people, regardless of where they are in life, during summer holidays, they go home to a family farm and they'd be helping out regardless of what it is that they're doing. Does it break down into any specific age group or what someone is doing, or is it across all ages that people can have very, very serious accidents?
Look, it is across all ages, but it is concentrated, though, very much on the older and the younger. The older, over 65s, that's where the highest concentration of accidents are, really. And a lot of that is with machinery and with animals. With machinery, because our reflexes are less than they were, you know, getting up and down off a machine, being able to move out of the way of a machine. They get less as we get older. And so we're asking older people to be particularly careful. And then younger children, of course, as well, because the farmyard isn't a playground. Even though children live on a farm, we take it for granted that it is part of the farm, it's part of the family home, and they want to be down there and they're fascinated by machinery. So we have to be very careful as parents that we make sure that children, when they're down the yard, they're accompanied by an adult, they're not on the machinery. It's inappropriate to have them on the machinery under 7, you know, and it's inappropriate to have them in the yard unless they're accompanied by an adult. Even though, as I said, this is a playground. They think it's a playground.
I even just think back to my old childhood, going, you know, this time of year, you're in your summer holidays, you're helping out with the silage, you're getting involved in local farms and stuff, and love to be seeing these big machines going. But Martin, we know that there is a cost of living crisis at the minute. A lot of farms are struggling to be able to do the work that they're trying to do at the prices that they're being given. So farm safety is probably put to a side at the minute. What can be done for farmers to try and ensure that that culture is changed?
Yeah, to change a culture is very hard, Tommy, and it's not even that the cost of living, it's also that because we're at full employment, there's a shortage of labour available now to help farmers. So where you have older farmers, that's a challenge too. So really what we try and do, how we try and break it down is, first of all, we need to raise awareness, which is what Farm Safety Week is all about. But doing that constantly with farmers, that farm safety has to be an integral part of everything we do, and not a separate thing that you talk about separately. And that we provide training as well to make farmers aware of identifying risks and how we can reduce hazards and risks on our farm. The second element then that's really important is investment. So it's to have that financial incentive there that we've managed to incorporate in the last round of TAMS, which in the CAP basically, which every farmer integrates with in some way, either through knowledge transfer groups where farmers work together with a mentor, through the new beef scheme, through the new Acres Agri-Environmental scheme, or through the TAMS capital investment scheme. Farm safety training is now an integral part of all that. Then having the investment support in grants to support farmers to make those changes around animal handling facilities and the rest. And the third key component then is working with partners like the IFA, like victims, like Peter and those who work with the Embrace charity and others. The Farm Safety Partnership through the HSA are also a really good partner.
What's the knowledge transfer programme?
So knowledge transfer is something that farmers do. Very progressive farmers meet in groups of 8 or 10, and it would be farmers who have the same enterprise. So tillage farmers who grow crops will meet together, animal farmers, dairy or beef, and they'll talk about how best practice and what they do on their farms, and they'll share that knowledge with the work of a mediator or a mentor. But what we've done now is incorporate farm safety into that, because as I say, farm safety can't be just this thing that we talk about once a year over here. We incorporate it into everything we do, and any engagement we ever have with farmers, we never miss the opportunity to drive home the message around farm safety.
And Peter, we know that there's increasing pressures on farmers. We talk about it all the time, about the old ways of farming, the new ways of farming. We studied on a couple of years ago, 75% of farmers feel that drug use is widespread in rural communities. And Professor Colin O'Gara, who's a consultant psychiatrist and the clinical lead of addiction services, said that there's a massive problem in rural communities, particularly among farmers in their 50s and 60s, with cocaine addiction. Now, is this something that we have to be talking about? And farmers are talking about this all the time now, about what is happening in their communities. And that can lead to accidents, surely, and that they're under so much pressure that this is growing within the rural community.
I think drug use is pervasive all across Ireland, whether it doesn't have to be urban Ireland, it's rural Ireland, it's everywhere, and I don't think there's any occupation that's more predisposed to it than any other, so we'd be wrong to think that farming was immune to it. But there are so many other pressures as well. You know, if we talk about age profile, as was mentioned earlier, I'm regularly asked, why do we have so many farmers in their 70s dying in farm safety incidents? It's because we have so many farmers in their 70s still actively farming. And in most other professions, they would have retired, there would have been a successor on. So we're doing a lot of work in the area of trying to promote succession through a number of different initiatives to make sure the next generation of farmers come on. But ultimately here, you know, what we want to do is drive home the message to farmers this week, as in every week, that farm safety is not an occasional thing to be thought about. It has to be integrated into everything we do, and that ultimately there are risks on our farms, but we can reduce that risk by promoting a culture of reducing.
You work in that now, don't you? You work in. How are farmers when you go around talking about farm safety to them? Do they think they know everything, or is it like, lads, look at what happened?
No, basically, when I go out talking and I show them my leg, the prosthetic leg or that, it ends up that farmers will sit up and they'll listen, you know. They can see that I'm not coming from a book-based person telling them how to take care of their safety on farm. You know, they can see, I can tell them about the consequences. Like, what happens is, I had to learn for the second time how to walk in my life, you know, after 42 years of age. You know, like, it's like losing a job, only worse, because at least if you lose a job and you're able-bodied, you're able to go out and find other employment. But now you have a disability. Not every sector will take you on with your disability. You know, like they'll say, I remember applying for a load of jobs, sending in great CVs and everything, and what you'd be told is, you're too qualified or you're not qualified enough. It was kind of way, we don't want you, you have a disability. You know, saying it nicely, you know, but they still didn't want you. You know, I think the government's idea they're trying to bring in 6% of the workforce should be people with disabilities employed. You know, that needs to be stepped up. And you see, the other thing, like, which have been many times but talking to Minister Hayden, is trying to get adaptations for farmers on farms so that they can go back to work. Because a lot of farmers, like myself, don't see a future going forward, you know, with a disability, and they are stuck in farming all the time, you know.
It's what, like, you know.
Yeah.
It's your life.
It's their life, exactly. You know, it depends on what age. Like, the average age of the farmer out there at the moment is 57 years of age, you know. So we have an age in workforce. Most young farmers, like family farms, Alice will probably tell you on it as well, is that the women at home today, you know, the mothers will say, don't be a fool like your father, don't marry a farmer. Get out and marry someone else, you know.
Alice is smiling but saying nothing. Smiling but saying nothing.
It is such a sad, it is sad to say that. But listen, having somebody like you even just highlighting this safety awareness is really, really important, because, as you say, it is a culture and it does have to change, that sometimes taking the easy route is taken as opposed to what might actually be the safest. Listen, Peter, put your hat on there. Let's have a look at it. Peter Gorey, of course, think farm safety, that's what it's all about. Alice Doyle from the National Farm, Family and Social Affairs Chair, thank you so much for coming in. And Martin Hayden, Minister for State with Social Responsibility for Farm Safety. Thank you all three.
Welcome back. It's time to take a look at what is making the news, and we are joined by Bauer Media's political correspondent, Sean Defoe. Good morning, Sean.
Morning,
lovely to have you here.
Sean.
How are you?
How are you? It's, the front of 3 of the papers this morning is people aren't wanting to pay their licence fee, and it's, I mean,
the most unsurprising.
Well, shock horror after 3 weeks of scandal.
Even just in a couple of weeks, it's costing RT close to €1 million.
Yeah, this man. And just as a quick side note, it's
How
also
many flip-flops is that?
Well, that's a lot of flip-flops. It's also a side note to say that journalists can't do maths, because the 3 of the papers have different figures for how much. That this is actually a reduction by the Indo going with 30%, the Mail saying 22, and the Mirror saying 25. I had it at 25, so I'm going to stick with that.
Okay,
and Virgin Media had it at 25, so I'm going to stick it. A 25% reduction for the first week of July compared to the same week last year, which is when you combine with about a 2% drop in June, and remember this only kind of came out towards the end of June, so that's not all that surprising, about €933,000 already foregone in TV licences not renewed or not bought. Significant drop as well, hard to know how much to read into it, in new licences in the first week of July. That was down 40%. So now that could be down to maybe not a lot of people moved into new houses or whatever. We don't really know. We need the full month of data to know that. But what it is showing is a lot less people are paying the TV licence after all of this, and that's going to be really the longer term worry for RTÉ.
Because we had a lot of text messages from people saying that they don't want to pay the licence fee, they don't trust RTÉ, which, You know, listen, RTE doing a lot of incredible stuff, and I think that maybe some bad spending by a different arm of it doesn't really tell the whole story. You know, that's actually the good reporting and actually the money that the license fee goes to.
One of the transport of the calves last week in prime time. That was, I was like, well, that's what you pay your license.
That is what you're paying for. And when you think, because people will say, well, sure, that's only 2 years of Tubridy or whatever, but they actually go, well, no, actually, that's like 16 salaries in RTE. That's like 16 journalists that don't, that suddenly their salary for the year is gone out of the books. And it is stuff like that, you know, it is the Prime Time Investigates, it is the documentary. Like, I know we work for rival organisations, we're often competing with RTE for stories in my job, but if you turned off the RTE tap, the amount that does go covered because of the licence fee in rural areas or in regional areas where they have correspondence that commercial enterprises just can't afford to sustain.
But it does open up the question that where does this licence fee go? You know, whenever you have the likes of Radio Kerry, you have the likes of Northern Sound, you have Virgin Media or Bauer, do you know what I mean? That they're all providing a national service as well.
Yeah. So this goes out to the question, what is public service?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So since RTE, in the last 30 years, really, all of those stations have cropped up and they're doing the same thing and they're doing that public service journalism. They get a small slice of it through the likes of documentary funding and funding for drama and stuff like that, but very, very small by comparison.
We should just say it is illegal not to pay your licence fee. We are not proposing that anyone do that. We also know it's an indirect taxation. It's whatever, 44 cents a day, but at the same time, they are looking to try to collect it in a different way now so as that people can share the pie. That's what's been called
that's going to be the big question. How do you fund this now that there's a shortfall? Because if it's that much for 1 week, it's going to be a lot more for... And already there was about €65 million RTE estimated per year foregone in people who didn't pay. Evasion rate before all of this was 15%. I think in the UK it's 5%. So there was already a huge evasion rate anyway.
Get in touch, 0896 111 111. We'd love to hear from you if you didn't pay for it. Well, anonymous.
Yeah.
Anonymous.
Don't put your name on that text.
We're not going to dob you in. We're no daubers here. We're not daubers. Now, in something that I don't think anyone will be surprised by, Ireland has become warmer and wetter in the past 30 years.
We're getting global warming and more rain. All in the one go.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, we are in that sweet spot of just, no, it's going to continue to rain for you while the rest of Europe is scorching. This is a really interesting study, actually, that Éireann does every 10 years to basically say how the climate has changed over the last 30, and it shows May in particular is the month that's seen the most heating, 1 degree over the last 30 years.
I'm surprised with that, because I always kind of think hopefully going into August and September would be nice, but actually May, June are the two hottest months.
Yeah, the two. I'd be the same, but then you see a July day like this.
We've forgotten about it. We've forgotten about it by the time September comes around, because we're like, give us that 1 week while the kids go back to school.
We had that great June.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Or the great March of COVID, when everything was
leaving cert is on as well.
They forget about everything. Exactly, leaving cert weather is a scientific fact. So yeah, we are going up at 0.7%, and that sounds small. It always feels like it sounds, 1 degree over 30 years, but actually, when you're talking about 1.5 degree for the world, it's what you're seeing now. It's these heat waves across Europe, potentially as high as 50 degrees. The one that gets me is, and you probably saw it on the news last night, is people gathering in Death Valley in California to look at this clock and celebrating that it's going to be the hottest day ever. 56.3 degrees, I think, is the hottest that's ever been recorded in the world back in 1913. And people are there with like balloons and poppers going, oh my God.
What is wrong with people now?
I don't know what's wrong with people.
Honestly, even in China saying that their hottest 52 degrees as well, smashing the record by 1.6 degree. But like, as you say, you might think that 1 degree is not massive, but I mean, when we're getting to this level, it's absolutely insane.
I remember when I moved to Dublin, I felt like I lived in a different country, because when you live on the West Coast, it's always raining. And I moved here, I was like, it doesn't rain at all in Dublin.
I was the opposite. I was down the southeast in Waterford, and then I came to Dublin, and I was like, what's with all the rain? What's with all this rain?
It's pretty wet down in Kerry, but at least the goat's not going to get too wet.
Puck Fair.
Puck Fair.
The longest running festival in Ireland.
1613, some of this goes back to now. So there's your fine tradition. Yeah, big change this year. Obviously, the controversy was last year because we had all the good weather during Puck Fair.
But this is also about King Puck, right? So a wild goat is put up on this. It's been done for hundreds of years. And obviously people are like, it's not fair to put a goat up there for 3 days and nights.
3 days and nights that he's up there. This year, it's only going to be a couple of hours. So they're going to put him up for the hour at the start. King Puck is elected, I think that's fair to say, or chosen, certainly at the start.
He's wrangled.
It's like a coronation rather than an election. Sorry, they don't...
Well, he marries he's the King Puck, and there's the Queen of the Puck.
It's a bit insane.
The fact that we're getting into like regal goats here rather than, you know, elected goats is a different thing. But anyway, they're putting them up for an hour at the start and an hour at the end and taking them down in between. And the organisers basically saying, yeah, probably not the best thing in the 21st century to have this goat up there. Some backlash to it, though. It was Johnny Healy-Rae, one of the Healy-Rays down there, has said that people are very, very disappointed and that the goat always came down better than he went up, was treated better than most kings while he was up there.
Sure.
Why he was up there?
He didn't do anything. I've gone every year for my entire life, basically. It's a great crack, but I think we'll have just as much fun in Falvey's without a goat up there.
I think the exact quote was, he was fed and watered and there were vets standing by. So, you know, better than any king.
Sure, what more does he need?
King Charles, do you have your vet?
What do any of us need?
Ready to go.
Sean Defoe from Bar Media. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean.
Alan, what have we got next?
Oh, God. Of course, the Healy-Rae would come in on it, wouldn't they? Oh, dear. Now, coming up after the break, from emission stickers to speed limits, we're telling you everything you need to know if you're going to be driving abroad this summer. Get us out of this rain. We'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks for staying with us now. From BMW's latest SUV to driving abroad this summer, motoring editor with the Sunday Independent, Geraldine Herbert, joins us. And Tommy's very excited.
I am. I've been out already trying out the new car that you have dubbed the most phenomenal SUV ever.
Well, it's the most expensive BMW you can currently buy and the most powerful M car produced.
So what's an M car?
OK, so the M division is the motorsport division of BMW. Now, normally what they do is they take a regular BMW and they tweak it so you get your M3, your M4, your M5, M6, all of those. But unlike normally, this is only the second car they have ever built from the ground up. So there's no equivalent regular BMW. This is purely their car.
So
now,
this is here. I think it's an awful looking thing. I have to admit, I think it's an awful looking thing. Tommy thinks it's amazing.
Well, it's built for the it's not built for Irish roads, really, is it?
Absolutely not. It is huge. It's over 5 metres. It weighs 2,700 kilos. Like, this is a monster. It's also so bling.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're paying, it's over 200 grand for it as well.
Starts at 190, but by the time you put in the little extras that you're going to expect in a car of that price, you're looking at over 200.
So €200,000 to buy this.
What's it like to drive? Because you've got one outside.
We were supposed to be outside, but the lovely Irish weather
in
stopped
July.
us going.
Yes.
In July,
stopped us. Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly fast. It's incredibly powerful, but it's very heavy, and you feel that weight. I have to say, I'm disappointed. If the M division were once going to build a car from scratch like that, first time since the 70s, I wish to God it wasn't an SUV, because it is heavy. You cannot disguise that sheer bulk on the road.
You would go for what, a saloon car?
Yeah.
Okay.
M5.
Why?
M3.
But they've got those.
Yeah, but at the same time, they could have still done something different. I mean, I think it's just, you know, it's a sign of the times that they took an SUV and made it powerful, but they're almost an oxymoron in the sense of, like, a powerful, sporty SUV. Sorry, it just doesn't work.
How many do they think they'll sell in this country of that car?
I'd say only a handful, but they'll sell across Europe. But the big market will be China and the States. That's what they're looking at. And it really is one of those trophy cars. I mean, it's a real case of, you know, it's a statement car. It's what they can do.
I have to say, I was sitting in it there. It looks a bit dark in those shots, but it is luxury inside. Like, it is incredible. I mean, 200 grand, you'd hope it would be, to be fair.
No, absolutely, and there's loads of space in it, and it's just pure luxury inside. But I do think the outside of it, it's
a bit much.
The one thing I did miss, though, is that when you turn it on, it doesn't give you the growl. Do you know, is that a thing of the past?
No, it's a V8 engine, so you'll get that growl. I mean, you will notice it on the road, definitely. Now, it's a plug-in hybrid.
Though, is it not?
It's a plug-in hybrid, and again, it's the first M car that's a plug-in hybrid, so that's you know, kind of moves the game on. But no, I mean, it's a really powerful engine.
It certainly is.
Take for a
now,
spin.
we're talking about
I'll never get it back.
Oh, take it around. And we're talking about travelling if you're going to take your car abroad. Some things that you should know. What are the main tips that you should do if you are taking your car abroad this summer?
OK, well, the first thing you want to do is ensure that the car will actually make the journey, and you're not going to spend most of your holiday on the hard shoulder or whatever. So if your car is due a service, get it serviced around that time, but ensure that that, all your coolant levels, your oils, all of those things. If you don't know how to do that yourself, get them checked. So it's worth having a mechanic look at it, or as I said, get it serviced. The other thing you need is you need your passport, you need your insurance documents, you need your registration documents for the car to prove you're the owner, because you can get stopped and be asked about these things. Now, in terms of insurance, it's always a good idea to phone your insurance company. There shouldn't be an issue, but still just tell them you're taking the car out of the country.
Right.
Another thing that's worth getting is obviously European breakdown cover, because no matter, things happen, so you want to make sure that you are covered.
You're covered here, but you wouldn't be covered in Spain or Portugal or wherever you might be, or France, or whatever.
And you mentioned their coolant level, because we're seeing on the front of a load of the papers talking about the heat over there. So you don't want the old aircon to switch off when you're in the middle of it. What other things can people do in precaution for the heat? Is there anything else?
Yeah, the heat. Another thing is where you park it obviously makes a huge difference. So try and park it in the shade. But you can also buy, these sun deflectors, these heat deflectors for your windscreen.
On the front of the windscreen?
Yeah, you can pick them up cheaply in any of these motor accessories companies. So definitely I would think about doing that. And then just when you're in the car, I suppose, stay hydrated, because we're talking about extreme temperatures that we're not used to. Yeah, if you have small children with you, do not for any second leave them in the car for any length of time. If you're bringing pets with you, you really need to be careful. You cannot sit in a car in that sort of heat for any length of time.
Are the speed limits the same in Europe as here?
It depends. In France, they're quite different in the sense that they change in terms of the weather. So they actually have a wet weather speed limit as well. But on the motorways, they're about, I think it's 130 in France. In Spain, it's 120. So just check out the speed limits before you go. I mean, most people end up driving in France or Spain. So, they're the ones to check. The other thing I would say, and it's really, really important if you're taking your car in the next few weeks to France or Spain, is check out, they have these low emission zones, and you have to have stickers in advance, right? Now, I've spoke to a few people, and on the website for the French one, it says, you'll get them within a week. You can be waiting 2 to 3 weeks.
So, sorry, what is this?
Right, so essentially what it is, you're not allowed to drive into a city with a low emission zone if you don't have the sticker, and the sticker designates what sort of emissions your car has. You'll be fined, I think it's 135 in France if you're found in one of these low emission zones. It's 200 in Spain. Now, we are going to put up the addresses on the Facebook page for people if they're going to France or Spain. But you just get them, you stick them in your car. They're only about €4 or €5.
Are we talking, like, say, just Paris, like the main cities, or is it cities all over?
There's a number of zones. They've extended them, and there's a number of zones in Spain as well.
So you could really be caught.
Yeah. If you didn't know and you drive into these, as I said, like €135 in France, 200 in Spain. So you do need to know in advance. And that's the kind of thing people don't know about.
Okay, and there's other simple things as well with a light bulb in France, not typical like this.
Yeah, there's a few things you have to, by law, you have to carry spare bulbs, but also high-vis vests for everybody in the car. Say a warning triangle. Yeah, there's different requirements. Yeah, there's different requirements for each country. So check before you go. The other thing I would say as well, when you're taking your own car, you're driving on the opposite side of the road. Yes. Remember, your car is set up not for that side of the road, so visibility is very difficult. You need to have a good passenger who's going to do some of that work for you just for checking things. Yeah. And also be really careful, because we tend to drift back to our own side of the road early in the morning if you're on a quiet road. So stay on busy roads for the first few days, just to follow the car in front of you and kind of train yourself to driving on the wrong side of the road.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah, lots there that we wouldn't have known. We just said yesterday, I should take your driver licence and off. But there's lots to check out there.
Yeah. Motoring journalist Geraldine Herbert, thank you so much. I'm going to go take the old BMW XM now for a spin.
How do I get home?
Now, still to come this morning, singing sensation Gabrielle chats to us ahead of her upcoming Irish gig.
So that, plus Derek is in Limerick ahead of this weekend's All-Ireland final. We'll be back with Ireland M very shortly. Good morning, you're very welcome back. We've got so much still to come here on Ireland M, including falling in love, making love, and everything in between.
A lot in between that, surely. Dreams come true as singer Gabrielle returns to Ireland this weekend, and at 8:15 we'll be chatting to the chart topper about her career in music and why Adele cried her heart out when she met her.
Also on the show, she's ignited a sexual revolution in Ireland. Sex educator Jenny Keane will be stopping by to help those find that spark in the dark.
Turn the lights on. Plus, Love Island. Speaking of love, Tasha Gori and Andrew LePage, they chat celebrating their 1-year anniversary and what life is like outside the villa. Did you watch that one?
I did, yeah. No, I liked.
Good couple?
Yeah, Tash was great and Andrew's great too.
He's on a flight, so he doesn't know what Tommy said about it.
Now, Alan, what's coming up in the kitchen?
Well, we've a breakfast dish inspired by the Philippines. Audrey, tell us more.
Yes.
This would be breakfast.
Yes, that's a typical Filipino breakfast that we'd have. It's called long silog. So today I'll be showing how to make the sausages called longanisa.
Longanisa. So it's basically, we would have the sausages here, but we wouldn't have the rice or the what else is there?
Yeah, garlic fried rice and then just a fried egg on top and a salad of tomato cucumber.
Oh, a fried egg on top. So we're basically getting sausage and egg as well.
Yeah, like a
That's what
traditional
we like.
Irish. Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Looks absolutely delicious. Now, Derek is getting us psyched up for the All-Ireland hurling final this weekend. How's it getting? And what's the spirits like down there, Derek?
Yes, Al, welcome down here to the home of hurling in Patrickswell in Limerick. There is big excitement building here in the run-up to All-Ireland final Sunday, taking on Kilkenny up at Croke Park. John McDermott, chairperson with the club, is with us. Great excitement down here, John.
Oh yeah, huge excitement here this weekend. Delighted to have 3 players involved with Diarmuid Burns, Aaron Gillan and Cian Lynch.
And not only is it a big one for the county, it's a big one for the club as well.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. What it's done for our club is incredible in the last few years. Look, even with the kids, the adults, everyone's getting behind this team.
Any tickets going?
A few hanging around there at the moment. We're hoping to get everyone sorted now this week.
All right, guys, who's going to win? Back to you in studio.
Conor Murray not getting a look in this morning in Patrickswell. That's it.
Out the window, all right.
Absolutely.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
Thank you, Chair, and a very good morning. We're live here inside Patrickswell GAA Clubhouse. We're down here in County Limerick, right across the morning. Of course, big excitement building ahead of our Ireland final Sunday. Coming up later this hour, we're going to be catching up with former Limerick hurler Barry Foley. Hopefully we get a challenge in there as well. Weather permitting, he's going to be giving us his predictions on the big game ahead as well. So that's all to come in and around 8:45. Now, we're getting past 8 o'clock here this morning. It is bucketing rain. That's why we have the kids indoors at the moment, because there's plenty of heavy showers down here in the Midwest, and in fact that status yellow rainfall warning now remain in place for counties Cork, Kerry, Waterford until 3 p.m. later on this afternoon. But real intense heavy downpours, especially across the eastern half of the country through the Midlands and into parts of the north. Now right across today, light variable breezes to take us right across the 18th of the month, and bit by bit you'll be glad to hear the bulk of that heavy rain will begin to feed out into the Irish Sea. So in behind it, it really is that mixture of bright spells with some scattered showers. Top 10s again leaning on the heavy and muggy side in and around 16 to 20 degrees. Right across that into tonight, that system of rain, those showers out into the Irish Sea. In behind it, it will be a lot drier, a lot more settled with clearer skies, with some light rain to take us through into tomorrow, but an improving picture as we work our way into your Wednesday with overnight lows there back to 11 to 15 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in Patrickswell and Limerick at the moment. We'll be back again live 8:35.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
It's time now to take a look at this morning's paper, starting with the Irish Times. Its headline, Inquiry Team Denied Access to Children's Hospital Site. The timeline for completion of the hospital could slip further after a breakdown in communication between the project board and also the builders, BAM.
RTE loses 1 million as licence fee renewals plummet by 30%. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. As RTE grapples with an ongoing financial scandal, the number of people failing to pay their TV licence increases. The Department of Media reveal a fall in almost 6,000 people compared to last year, when more than 15,000 licences were issued.
The TV licence revolt begins. That's also the top story on the Daily Mail. Figures show that in the first week of July, the number of people paying the licence fee has fallen by 22%. There are 3 different figures across papers this morning, by the way, just to let you know. Former Fine Gael Minister Brendan Griffin said these figures indicate a funding crisis for RTE if a contingency plan is not put in place.
The Mayor similarly goes with TV licence flee.
The Examiner's front page, real threat from China interference. Ireland faces an threat of economic espionage and academic interference as agencies and individuals linked to the Chinese state use money and influence to penetrate academia to ensure its international narrative is advanced and suppresses criticism, which seems to be working very well.
The Star leads with roof justice for Kin Chief. The Criminal Assets Bureau have seized a luxury home in Garristown, County Dublin, as part of a €1.4 million case against senior Kinahan member Ross Browning.
The Herald also goes with a kick in the paddocks for cartel thug. The cab seized includes the Chestnut Lodge cottage where Ross Browning's mother Julie Conway has been living, as well as horse paddocks and an indoor show jumping arena.
And finally, the Sun's front page. Nation divided on Tubbs' RT future. A poll conducted by the Sun shows that 50% of its readers believe Ryan Tubridy's career is over, and 40% of people say that Kevin Backhurst should let him stay at RTE. There you have it. Now, Alan, we were talking earlier on this morning. It is Farm Safety Week.
Farm Safety Week. I didn't realise the amount of people who lost their lives in farming accidents over every year.
19 on average a year,
and the amount
young
of accidents,
young and old, which is the really sad thing, is that there's a lot of young people lose their lives as well.
Jim was saying, we were talking about more training needed about farming and farm machinery and everything, and Jim said unfortunately farming is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week. Training people takes time and money, and though farming safety is important, most rural kids these days want to work in an urban environment. It pays more for less physical labour.
Yeah, and Nick says the reality is the cost of living is too high, and a lot of farms in Ireland are run on old and run-down equipment. We need real investment to bring farming into the 21st century. What happened to Peter? Peter was one of the people who was speaking with us, and he lost his leg in a farming accident 10 years ago. It could have easily been his son or a family member helping out who got into that accident. His son was just 10 years old when it happened, and his wife, who was a nurse, was on scene very quickly to stem the bleeding.
And Alice was just talking about it as a culture, and that like sometimes it's easy to take the easy way as opposed to doing the safe thing, and that just comes with training and trying to do their bit. So thank you for your text messages on that. We're also talking about the King Puck Fair, the oldest fair in the land,
and
in
we
the world.
remember the controversy last year. The talk about Ryan Tubridy, that was on the papers for how many days last year?
So King,
that's right.
Oh, it's totally
King Puck is put up on the top
up there
of the
for 3 days.
For 3 days, day and night.
The organisers last year to still think in this day and age that that's okay to do.
Well, listen, they've done it.
So last year, that was the problem.
They're putting King Puck up there for an hour at the start of the fair, an hour at the end of it. And Johnny Healy-Rae was saying it's a disgrace that this has been a long-standing tradition and should stay like that.
Treated better than a king.
And Marcia said, well, we'll put Johnny Healy-Rae up in that stand at the Puck Fair
3 days.
for 3 days and nights and see how he likes it.
There you go, Johnny Healy-Rae. Would you do that? Let's see.
You'll have a vet on the ground, Johnny, and we'll have all the water and all the land.
There you go.
That's
Joe says that Puck Fair looks like something out of The Wicker Man. It looks horrendous, and the poor goat being subjected to such heights. Shame on the tradition being kept in this day and age.
It's also weird because King Puck gets married to a queen. And the queen is a primary school child. Girl, it's weird. It's weird, lads. As someone who's my mum's from that area, and I go all the time, and it's great crack. But
is it great fun?
Great fun. I've had really good fun. You buy a Casio watch, it will break 10 minutes later. But you'll buy it every year.
Why would you buy a Casio?
They're fake Casio watches. You know,
they just sell them on the street.
Fake things that are for sale. Yeah, it's great.
Why would you buy it?
Because it's a tradition that I buy a Casio watch at every single year.
How much is a Casio watch to buy?
It's like €4.
Oh, OK.
So it's not real. It's not real, it's fake. And then I go into Falvy's and I have a great all day.
So all the traders selling Casio watches down at the Puck Fair.
I'll be there. I'll be there. Fascio. I think they're called Fascio watches.
We also are talking front page of a lot of the papers as well this morning is TV licences, and a lot of the 3 of them I don't think can agree exactly the figure of how many people have not paid for their licence fee in July. But Rachel said, if I'm being honest, I feel sorry for Ryan Tubridy and I am on his side. However, all this scandal would make me think twice about paying my TV licence. RTE seem to have the money to burn for presenters' wages. Maybe we should start by lowering their fees first.
Now, where is going to...
I know, we didn't get into the Children's Hospital site. We have to get to this tomorrow. It's absolutely fascinating.
Anyway, we're all excited who we're talking to next.
You've been singing it all morning. It's so nice. Every song. We're going to be chatting to Gabrielle. Dreams do come true. There she is, Gabrielle! We'll see you back here very soon. Oh, she's already going. We'll talk to you in a minute.
Good morning. You're very welcome back now.
Come on, do it, please.
Dreams, give me a little more time. Out of Reach and Rise, they're just some of the smash hits. Our next guest, impressive back catalogue of chart-topping tunes.
He sang every single one of those when we were practicing. And you were so good at it.
Great tunes.
So good at it. We are, of course, talking about the brilliant Gabrielle. And before we say hello, there she is. What an impressive setup.
Hiya.
Hello. We're going to remind ourselves,
Hello,
Gabrielle,
everyone.
of some of those fantastic hits.
Enjoy.
Was I ever loved by you? Out of reach, so far. I never had your heart. Out of reach, couldn't see. We were never meant to be. Just look at my hopes, look at my dreams. I'm building bridges from the seams. Now I'm ready to rise again. Dreams can come true. Look at me, babe, I'm with you. You know you got to have hope. You know you got to be strong. Dreams can come true. Look at me, babe, I'm with you. You know you got to have hope. You know you got to be strong.
I swear to God, Gabrielle, thank you for making us so happy this morning. How are you doing?
I am really excited. Really, I can't believe how transported back into time seeing those videos I am, because I'm like all the ages and the body sizes. I'm like, oh my God.
It is incredible.
She's like, my different sizes, because we saw the last one there. The last one there is Dreams, which was like your first massive single. So that was before you had your children and everything like that.
Yes.
That's 30 years ago. And it sounds so good. Can you tell us about your memories of that time?
Oh my gosh, we're going way back into time now. But, you know, I just remember when the song was first released and the buzz around it was, you know, the record company knew before I did that it was going to chart quite high, and they kind of whisked me off somewhere. I just couldn't believe the reception. You know, I was going around singing this song in nightclubs, and before I knew it, that, you know, the radio and TV were all on my case, and before I knew it, it was a case of you've made history of being, you know, the first debut artist with the debut song to go straight in at number 2 and then number 1. So, yeah, when I look back, it was a blast. It was a mad roller coaster, and I can't still believe that I'm here 30 years later.
I just can't get over it. It's 30 years. It is crazy.
Yeah, lots happens. I'm a grandma now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me, to the grandkids, probably a bit young maybe to have watched Bridget Jones's Diary, because Out of Reach, obviously...
I've only got one, yeah. He's 3 months old.
Okay. Maybe give it a bit of time then, all right. But he is going to get into it, because Bridget Jones's Diary, Out of Reach, like that song we see with Hugh Grant and the clip there as well. Like, it's kind of one of the great rom-coms. That's just going to be, that song is such a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe it. Like, when I was asked to write a song for the book initially, I had no clue. And the fact that it became so huge, I mean, the book was huge, but then to see all the characters come to life, and my favourite was Colin Firth. So, you know, what can I say? I'm always forever going to be happy to be associated with the movie. It was incredible. And yeah, it's a song that it's not just a girl song. People say, oh, it's a chick flick. No, the guys come to the shows and they are singing their heart. So, you know, like singing at the top of their lungs and just singing from the heart, and I'm loving it. So, yeah, it's a song that just affected everyone and everyone loved it. So what can I say? I just love that.
You've had so many different phases of your career. And I suppose one of them was rather recent. You supported Adele at her big summertime gigs in Hyde Park.
Yes.
Which is a huge thing.
And blew her out of the park.
And blew her away, obviously. But she started crying when she met you.
Do you know something? I think I was just shocked. She is incredible. She did cry, but you know what? She's a superstar, but she's so humble, and she's a flawless singer that I can't believe I even said anything to her, because she is just incredible. She's this amazing, gorgeous, beautiful woman talented and so down to earth, who made me feel so welcome. And I totally get why, apart from her incredible talent, why we all just love her. Because what you see is what you get. She's just incredible. And her music is just, she's to die for. The music is just, it transcends everything. And all kind of, just everyone. I don't think there's hardly anyone who doesn't like an Adele song. And so to meet her, to be in her presence, it's something I'll never forget. And to be able to open up for her, that was incredible. It was shocking. And then she was on the stage. It was fun in her rollers. I mean, how incredible is that shot? She looks phenomenal. So that's how cool. Adele can come on stage in rollers and look fabulous, because she is. So it was just phenomenal. I loved it, and I'll never forget it.
Do you not feel proud in yourself, though, the fact that she has credited you as one of her main inspirations? Like, that is one of the reasons she has had such success. But also, I think the fact that you have this down-to-earth personality as well.
Oh, thank you. You know something? I pinched myself because, when you've got all these huge superstars and they're younger by many decades, and then they do mention your name, you're like, what, are they talking about me? And, it was lovely to kind of hear her story and to hear that, like the fact that she loved my music and got her mum to make her an eye patch and things like that. It's like, wow. I'm like, wow. I am so impressed by it all. I love it all. And don't forget, like I said, I'm a grandma now. So you can imagine that story is going to come out of the box every single time. Every single time. Anyway, I'll be like, you can't make me do that. Thanks for Adele. I opened up for Adele.
This is what's so interesting. And it was, the eye patch, when that came along, there were people who were, like, I remember kids wearing eye patches because Gabrielle had an eye patch. And you once said, the idea of going out without with showing my eye is like going out without my knickers on.
Without knickers.
It just wouldn't happen.
It never changed. Hence, hair doesn't matter. My management is always like, you've got to kind of take it off your face, but I love it. Instead of me wearing sunglasses, which I do wear sometimes, but I love hiding behind hair. And, it's like, oh. But then my manager's like, if I had my way, I'd be like this. And some of my pictures, they're like, who the hell is under there? But you know what? I love it. And so, something, I don't show my lazy eyelid because that's what it is. I always feel that if you're a guy, you can get away with murder, being in the industry. And there's some gorgeous guys who show their lazy eye and it gets called sexy. But obviously, as a woman, there's so much pressure. And, I'm not the trailblazer, but the fact that I was able to wear an eye patch and not be like a normal, I can't say I'm not a normal looking woman, because what is normal? It encumbers so many different things. But in the, 30 years ago, to be wearing an eye patch and be a woman was not deemed like, oh, you're not, you're not kind of the norm. But I'll take that now, because if by not being the norm, I was able to kind of be a trailblazer where, talk about, having a lazy eyelid, wear an eye patch, have my really short hair. I know obviously Sinead O'Connor came and had a short shaved head and she's beautiful, but I'm happy to have done things differently and to be remembered for it. So, and I think if it helps people, then, just do you. Whoever you are, just do you. Yeah.
And this is exactly why you are such an inspiration to the likes of Adele as well. Listen, you are going to be coming to Ireland this weekend. You're playing Sunday in County Laois Forest Fest.
Yes.
And even the fact,
Fest on the 23rd.
It's going to be really exciting. You're going to be here in November as well, in Dublin and Galway and in Belfast. So people do want to hear those songs as well. But I just loved it that you wrote your album Rise, which has got such classic tunes on it in Ireland as well. So it's a special piece of your heart over here.
Yeah, I always say that. I always say to people, Irish girls, ladies, do not come for me. I always thought I was going to marry an Irishman. I didn't quite. I'm sorry. I did. I've spent a lot of time in Ireland falling in and out of love. Do I sound like... It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Okay. Falling in and out of love. They didn't know I'd have major crushes. Wonderful people there.
Well, can I just say, the crushes, she's going to be in Emo County Laois this weekend. My God, they'll all know. And
Watch out.
They'll all be up and down.
Well, I'm going to be, Dublin for 2 shows, Galway, Derry, Belfast. I'm going to be there. I love... So, yes, in November. So if you want to come and hang out and sing a few songs with me, please do. I'll
Oh
be
my
there.
God, one of the sultriest grandmothers I have ever seen in my entire life. Look at that look behind the camera.
My goodness.
Gabrielle, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You are a legend. Thank you so much.
All mine. Thank you.
And all the very best
Have a
on
wonderful
Sunday as well,
morning.
Gabrielle.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We'd also
Bye-bye.
just listen to her songs today. Like we just
Get
had.
Spotify out and listen.
Absolutely do
Classics.
that. So Sunday at Forest Fest in Emo, County Laois, Gabrielle is on the main stage. And 15th, 16th November in the Olympia in Dublin, 17th in Galway and 20th in Belfast.
Perfect coffee every time. Tassimo sponsors cookery on Ireland AM.
There's a lovely smell in the kitchen this morning.
Thanks, Tommy. Audrey Cadhall is here to make a Filipino breakfast. Good morning, Audrey.
Good morning.
So a Filipino breakfast is in front of us here. So it's
Yes.
basically, we're having the sausage and we're having the egg. That
Exactly.
we have here is an Irish breakfast, but you're adding rice,
Yes, so it's...
savoury rice.
So what I'm making today is longanisa, which is a Filipino sausage. So it's sweet and savory, garlicky at the same time. And then it's served with some fried rice, fried eggs, and then just a salad of tomato, cucumber, and red onion.
Okay.
So it's a very traditional
I
Filipino.
just started it. Sorry, Audrey.
It's okay.
But it's really yummy. The sausage. So say the sausage. It's kind of sweet, is it?
Yes, it's sweet, and there's
And garlic.
paprika, smoked paprika, garlic.
So what kind of mince is that?
Here I have some pork mince.
Pork mince.
I usually go to the butcher and ask for 70-20, so 70% lean, 20% fat.
Okay.
Because you need that fat when you're cooking.
Flavor fat, yeah.
So I'm just adding a full head of garlic.
A full one?
A full head of garlic.
You're not tasting
Yeah,
the
you
sausage.
can taste it. To be fair, it is garlicky.
It's garlicky, but it's not overpowering because it's
Well,
it's
got
savory
the
and sweet
as
as well.
kind of
Yeah.
masks it, yeah.
And then I have just some black pepper, paprika. And then this is 80 grams of brown sugar.
Brown sugar, okay.
Yeah, so it's nice for color.
Oh, just for colour?
Just for color, really.
Because
And
Audrey,
then-
you're saying in the Philippines, like you would have rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
So this is a breakfast meal, and these sausages, like you wouldn't eat them throughout the day, or is it just for morning?
This one you can eat whenever you want, but we typically would eat it for breakfast. So I just added some salt, soy sauce, and then cornstarch just to bring it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just gonna use our hands with
Go
gloves
ahead.
on
Go in.
and just go
in
for it.
Go for it.
Yeah, so it's the main difference between this and a regular Irish sausage is that it's sweet.
Yeah.
Right.
It's sweet.
And there's no skin on it.
No, there's no skin on it. So this one,
You notice that? There's
Mm-hmm.
no skin on it. Yeah.
this one is typically made at home because here, obviously, I wouldn't be able to get the longanisa that my grandparents would get for us in the morning. So my mom was actually the one who created this recipe because I came here at such a young age, and like for us not to feel homesick.
Yeah. You
Then
start
she,
making all the Filipino
we'd
foods
wake up with the smell of
this.
long silog, and then it just made me feel more at home.
silog.
Long
Long silog.
So that's sausage, rice, and
Eggs. Yeah.
Great.
So longanisa, siningag, and then fried egg.
But making the longanisa, because there's no skin on it, it means that you have to make this maybe a day in advance.
Yeah, so you want to let it marinate, essentially,
Right.
and set. So now that you have the mix ready, I put mine in a piping bag just because it's much, much easier.
Oh, okay.
So I just go put a little bit here, just to show you guys how we form it.
So could you make it into meatballs instead of kind of have to eat sausages?
Yeah,
yeah,
you can make it
could
into
work well.
any shape you want. I know
Okay.
some people that make it into a patty, and
Yeah,
then
beef patty or
and then
pork patty,
put it in pandesal, which is like a Filipino bun,
Oh yeah.
and then have eggs on it, like everything in it, but like in a burger
Yeah.
form.
It's gorgeous sausage.
So I just
Really
pipe it like that, and then you can be like you can do
as
it
many as you want. Yeah.
exactly,
then
and
you-
any shape as well.
oh,
And
you
then
roll it, and then do you put it in the fridge then overnight?
yeah, And you can freeze this as well. It freezes quite well. And then just cook it from frozen.
Okay.
So I just have a stack of these. And then whenever I'm ready, I just unroll it and then cook it like that.
And do you fry it?
Yes. So I have some here that's already half fried because there is so much sugar in it that you kind of have to start it off by boiling it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Just to prevent the sugar from caramelizing too quickly.
Okay.
So I just add a dash of water, and then after it's cooked, like I check the temperature, see if the mince is cooked, then the water is completely evaporated, and then you fry it.
You fry it off.
All right.
Yeah, and then
It's interesting.
towards the end, it'll caramelize.
How many sausages is that?
3.
Okay, I'll make some more. I'm just gonna fry an egg for you, so you'll get to try it as well.
And is the egg the thing that always goes on top of the rice? That's part of it.
Yes, so it almost acts like the sauce in the dish.
Oh, I see.
Because when you break the
That's
yolk,
what you've done. You've broken the egg into
It's like egg fried rice.
exactly.
Gorgeous.
And like the rice is also really garlicky. It's very simple. It's just frying rice with some garlic, salt, and that's it.
And would you always do the little salsa with it?
Yeah, so typically at home we would just eat it with some tomatoes with salt.
Oh,
but I
okay.
really like cucumber and
So you're
red
just
onion.
making up your own little salsa then?
Exactly. So I'm just gonna fry some eggs.
I got it wrong. See, I learned how to fry an egg this morning, which is pretty embarrassing, isn't it?
But
I always used to do an egg and try and flip it, and it would always break on me.
No, just
Yeah,
use the oil over the top of it.
Yeah,
Baste it.
exactly.
And I see you put a little bit of salt and pepper in there now before you start basting it.
Yeah, so that it sticks, because once you start basting it with the oil, you're gonna wash out, like there's so much slippage.
Yeah.
So I just season it beforehand. So I like the sides to be slightly brown.
And can
so
I
it's
ask
nice
you,
and
how long
crispy.
would the sausage be boiling for
The sausage
before you fry it?
It'll only take you less than 5 minutes.
Okay. So it's
So,
all very quick
'cause
because it's done the day before. So basically, when you're preparing it in the morning, it's all very quick.
Exactly.
And if you just fried it, potentially might not be cooked through. Is that right? With the sugar?
Yeah. So the sugar, the outside of it will caramelize too quickly before the mince is cooked.
Okay.
So for this one, I made it smaller just because we're cooking it at a quicker time. So usually they would be longer and a little bit thicker, the way my mom makes it.
Audrey, it's absolutely delicious.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I polished my mind's all gone.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Really delicious. Thank you so much for
I
that.
love the sausages, the real garlic and sugar.
Yeah.
Yum.
They don't taste like our sausages at all.
No, they do not. No.
They really
Audrey Cahatall, thank you.
Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
so
that.
much.
Now up next, it's called The Fastest Game on Grass. Derek has his hurl and his slither at the ready. See you in a few minutes.
Perfect coffee every time. Tassimo sponsors cookery on Ireland AM.
Now, thanks for staying with us. Derek is live in the Treaty County to preview the 2023 All-Ireland Hurling Final.
That's it. Seeing as he's a Limerick man, of course, he's not going to be any way biased.
No, of course he's not.
Derek is in Patrick's Well. How are you doing, Derek?
Yes, good morning, team, and welcome down here to Patrick's Well in Limerick. There is great excitement building ahead of All-Ireland Final Sunday. Of course, Limerick taking on Kilkenny. Former Limerick hurler now, Barry Foley, is with us. Good morning to you, Barry. 4 in a row. Can we do it, Barry?
We can, and I think we will. I think it's looking likely. Big challenge against Kilkenny, I know that, but 4 in a row looking very likely, in my opinion.
Now, let's talk about the championship itself. You know, they've scraped through over the last couple of games, going back there to Cork and Clare, 1-point wins, tight wins.
Well, I think people don't realise how competitive the Munster Championship is, you know, and Limerick are up there. They're the team to beat. Everyone will raise their game another 10% when they're playing Limerick. So it's going to be tough. I think it's unrealistic people thinking Limerick will go out and win these matches handy. Won't happen in Munster Championship. You have to go out, you have to perform, and you have to earn it. And in fairness, they've done that this year.
Now, they were in Croke Park last weekend against Galway. You know, Galway had that 6-point lead going into the break, and it was a tight scrape for them once again, but they pulled through. They had the legs in the second half.
I think that's what Limerick do, you know. A lot of teams this year have found a way to get on top of them for a period of time. But Limerick seem to weather that, you know, and get their house in order, change their tactics a bit maybe, get on top, and once Limerick get on top, they're a very hard team to beat.
Now, John Kiley, he's the manager at the moment, really. A lot of pressure on him this weekend.
A lot of pressure on him, a lot of pressure on everyone, but it's the same the other side and Kilkenny side of it. A lot of pressure on Derek Lynn, Kilkenny as well. But that's the nature of the game, you know. It's big-time hurling. Pressure on every day you go out, there's massive pressure. And Limerick seem to revel in that. You know, the last few, they're going for 4 in a row. When they get to Croke Park, they seem to be a different animal, and they seem to...
And 5 in the last 6 years. I mean, an unbelievable team.
It's crazy, yeah, it's unbelievable. You know, we waited so long, then we got to 2018.
1973.
1973.
And your uncle was playing on that team, in fact, Sean.
Sean, you know, you could say there's 2 generations of people have gone through without seeing Limerick winning All-Ireland. And the scenes in 2018 was unbelievable. And we were wondering, was it a one-year wonder? Was it a flash in the pan? And look, we're down the road 6 years later. We're going for 5 out of 6, hopefully 4 in a row. So it's brilliant times to be a Limerick hurler.
As you mentioned, Kilkenny, it's their first time under Lynn. Brian Cody retired there last year. You can never write off the Cats.
No, you can't. They're an exceptional team. Okay, they have a good blend, youth and experience. They're probably one of the greatest hurlers ever in TJ Reid. You know, they're going to be a serious, tough task for Limerick on Sunday. But as I said at the outset, I fancy Limerick. I think with their experience and their bench, I think their bench will play a big part of it. I fancy Limerick just to sneak in the end. You know?
Injury worries, what are we looking at, Barry?
I believe, well, it's well known that Declan Hannon is injured. So
since the Munster final?
Since the Munster final. He didn't play against Galway. We don't know the exact nature of the injury, but he could be in. They're going to give him every chance. But look, I think it's a strength of this Limerick team. I mean, last year you had Cian Lynch wasn't in it, Peter Casey wasn't in it.
He was hopping around the pitch.
You have this
pick
year,
up the cup. Yeah,
that's right. You had Sean Finn this year. But Limerick don't moan about it. They just get on with it. It's the next man in. It seems to be. They all buy into the system, and you know.
What a great weekend for the club as well. Three of the players coming from Patrick's Well Club.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Like, I mean, and 3 boys. You couldn't be 3 nicer fellas than Aaron Keane and Diarmid. You know, you have 2 Keane hurler of the year twice, Diarmid hurler of the year, and touch wood, Aaron nearly there for this year. So it's great for the club. It's great for the club going forward, you know, to have these guys.
And this is where it all kicks off, Barry, really, at grassroots level. We've all the mums and dads here this morning, all the kids. You know, there's a future All-Ireland winner here, Camogie or hurling, in the pack behind us.
Well, if you listen to any interview the 3 boys give, you know, they'll always reference the club. Like, this is where it starts for them. I mean, when they were young men, they were looking at Patrick's Well, winning county championships, looking at people playing for Limerick and wanting to be that. And this is where it starts for everyone. So hopefully the next future of Keane, Diarmid and Aaron's are here behind us.
So, guys, who's going to win at the weekend? They're a pretty confident bunch. Back to you guys in studio.
Limerick!
I'm going to have to go for
Is he in Kilkenny tomorrow?
I think so.
I'm assuming he will be in Kilkenny tomorrow morning. Derek, thank you so much
hope
for that.
So. He is now.
He is now. We have to be unbiased, Alan. Lots still to come in the final hour. Sex educator Jenny Keane helps couples spice up things in the bedroom.
Tommy has a list.
I know, I really need a lot of help, one-on-one. Love Island's Lovebirds, Tasha and Andrew talk life 1 year after the villa.
Plus, we've cosy clothing on the catwalk. Come back to us, show us that list.
Jenny, come on, let's go chat.
Welcome back. This hour we are talking reality TV, relaxed style and rolling in the sheets.
Is that what you call it? First
That's Adele's real song, Rolling in the Sheets.
Fell for each other in the Love Island villa last summer, and they're still going strong. Tasha Ghouri and Andrew LePage will be joining us for a chat just around 9:45.
And you know what? That's fairly spicy. Isn't that what Love Island is always meant to be?
And Ekin-Su and Davide, they broke up, but this pair are still together.
They're still going, so
strong.
they must be doing something right. Because we're going to be talking about steaming things up in the studio. A sex educator, Jenny Keane, makes her welcome return. Jenny, it's lovely to have you back. What are we going to be doing today?
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be back. So we're going to be talking a little bit about what I've been up to for the past couple of months. Not sexually.
Okay.
But, you know, and then also...
What's the point? That's
and
what
I'm going to be teaching you then how to spice things up in your own sex life.
That's what she's been doing for the last couple of months.
I'd probably just go red and.
Can we get it? Can we get him as red as your jumper, as the lips on your jumper? That's what we need to do today, Jenny.
Take
Loving
it easy on us, Jenny, please. Now, Alan's over on the catwalk. What have we got, Al?
Don't mind him, Jenny. The list is out. He has his list. What should I be doing? What should I be buying? Lorna Waitman is here with some comfortable and chic looks. Tell us more, Lorna.
No red faces.
No red faces here.
Today we're going to keep it a little bit more muted and paired back with some casual, really nice casual bits that you can wear throughout the summer. So it's about building a staple kind of selection of clothes you can wear this season and next season. It's all from casual company, from tees to nice comfy joggers. We've got dungarees, which are now making a very big comeback. I'm very excited. They are. They are, and I love them because they're so comfortable.
Oh, well, okay. That's all coming up a little later on now. Derek's in lovely Limerick all morning. How are you getting on, Derek?
Yes, guys, welcome down here to the home of hurling in Patrickswell in Limerick. We're joined very quickly by Roisin and Brian. Roisin, you also play Minors Camogie.
Yeah, we did a very good campaign this year, getting all the way to the All-Ireland final and against Antrim, but we lost out by 5 in the end. But
5 in the end, and your little sister Grace. Grace, who's going to win at the weekend? Limerick! And we've got Donna. Donna, who have we got here?
Baby Kevin.
Would you look? What age is he?
He's 5 months.
He's only 5 months old. He's Limerick's younger supporter. Would you look, guys? Back to you in studio.
Oh my God, he's so cute. Loves the mic. Kevin's looking for the job there, so he is.
We compare 14 insurance quotes to get you the best deal. So choose chill and work smarter, not harder.
Yes, thank you very much. Sure, we're live down here inside Patrickswell GAA Club. The home of hurling down here in Limerick this morning. The scramble is on for the tickets ahead of All Ireland final Sunday. Anyway, out there this morning in terms of weather, it's lashing rain outside, and still that status yellow rain warning now in place for counties Cork, Kerry and into Waterford to 3 p.m. this afternoon. But plenty of heavy rain right across the island out there at the moment, although beginning to brighten up now through parts of Galway, Mayo, in across the Midwest as well in those light variable breezes. Now right across today, a system of rain will bit by bit edge out into the Irish Sea. It will be slow, it will drag its heels for a time right across the eastern half to the northeast as well. But elsewhere will be that mixture of sunshine and scattered showers as we wrap up the day. Top temps in and around 16 to 20 degrees. Across then into tonight, it looks like it'll all settle down, mainly dry and clear with some nice scattered showers, but an improving picture you'll be glad to hear as we work our way into your Wednesday with overnight lows there back to around 10 to 14 degrees. So that's how it's shaping up here in Patrickswell and Limerick at the moment. We'll be back again live, 9:35.
Chill Insurance work harder so you can work smarter. We compare 14 quotes to get you the best deal.
Now, you're very welcome back. We've been discussing so much throughout the show this morning. One of the big things, of course, it is Farm Safety Week this week, and we had a lot of people in speaking about doing their bit to try and be that bit safer on farms, because on average 19 people do die in farm-related accidents every year here in Ireland. And John has just sent a message just saying that really great chat about farm safety. Despite his injury, Peter was inspiring. Now, Peter Ghouri lost his leg in a farm accident back in 2009. He's since gone back and trained to be a farm safety officer. And however, we should strive as a country to reach 0 accidents per year, and hope that chat has convinced a few more to take extra care while on the farm. Absolutely. Thank you, John. And we were also speaking a little bit earlier on to Gabrielle, the fantastic singer, Gabrielle. And Claire says Gabrielle is
an inspiration. I love the hair. She looked fantastic.
She looked amazing this morning.
Her story and bringing awareness to her lazy eye was great to watch as someone who has a similar problem. Her tunes are also incredibly nostalgic, but they're so up to date as well. And I think it's her birthday tomorrow. I think she's 54 tomorrow.
Look
and
amazing.
She's the new grandmother. It was so nice to talk to her.
She was so lovely.
Legend.
And we were also talking about the Puck Fair is coming up very soon, and of course we had all that controversy last year with the heat and the goat standing up on this height, the scaffolding for 4 days, and it's not going to happen this year. They're going to have it for an hour at the start, an hour at the end. And John says there'll always be traditionalists, but I'm glad they changed the role of the goat. The poor thing must have been so frightened up there. In this day and age, we can't let this happen. Well, it's not anymore.
Well, it is for an hour.
For an hour.
And an hour. But yeah.
It's not for 4 days.
Yeah, I know. Which is wild to think that it did happen.
Now,
Anyway.
Tommy's been looking forward to this all morning.
We are, yes, Jenny Keane is here and she's going to be teaching us all things birds and the bees. Get the notepad out. Yeah, for the break.
Welcome back. Now, the following conversation is of an adult nature. So, Tommy, it's time for you to pop off. Is that okay? No, viewer discretion.
I'd be happy to.
Viewer discretion is advised. And if there are little ears listening, you might want to cover them. You can cover little ears,
Go
can't you?
stick YouTube on in a different room. Now, join us to talk how to keep the spark in your relationship is sex educator Jenny Keane. Jenny.
Hello.
Hey, great to have you back.
How are you? Yeah, it's great to be back.
Do you love that you come with a parental advisory? Isn't that
Yeah,
lovely?
I think it's great. I love that Tommy's always advised to leave.
I know, exactly.
Every time.
Standard, isn't it?
We don't want him to get too abused.
How have things gone? Like, I mean, since you've been here, you've been in, like, Vicar Street, sold that out.
90 seconds, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You sold that out in.
It was pretty insane.
When it was called Sexed Up. When a show sells out in 90 seconds, are you like, is anyone in Ireland having sex? Like, what's going? There are babies, but what's going on? There's a real need for this, right?
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to sex education, I'm a really, like, whenever we talk about sex education, I always get questions like, oh, it's so important for kids. And I'm always like, well, we were kids once who never received the sex education that we deserved. And I think there are a whole, army of people, right? And this is not just in Ireland, it's across the world, who are starved of information and also looking for ways that they can, spice up their life, but also as well, approach their sex life if they're experiencing difficulties or having struggles, and how to, stay connected and maintain a really beautiful relationship, that has longevity and fun, right? And also putting, I think, pleasure at the center of that conversation. So I think, my focus is really talking to adults, like, how can you make this conversation approachable? How can you make it fun? How can you be more comfortable in something that's very uncomfortable, let's be honest, to talk about? And I'm really interested in giving people models of what that looks like, and making it really normal and also very unashamedly normal, right?
Yeah.
And I think the show is really important. For me, the show is more about bringing that conversation to the public in a different way, and also how they can approach, I suppose, the experience of their sexuality and also conversations around sex in a way that's a lot more open and, I suppose, on a stage, right?
Isn't it amazing that, you think for Irish people probably would have been quite prudish in the past, and maybe following stuff online is one thing, but actually going to a show and be willing to learn at a show is quite incredible.
Yeah.
Let's get into what we're here to talk about as well today, is about keeping the spark alive, because this is a big thing for a lot of people who are, in a long-term relationship or even a short-term relationship. Why would the spark go in a relationship?
I think there's a couple. First of all, I want to say I could do a whole workshop on this. I could take over R&AM for the morning and talk about this.
Okay.
So what I would say in kind of a short time frame is that when we talk about the spark, what we're actually talking about is the fire, right, of the relationship, because the spark is the initial attraction that pulls you together. But when you're talking about sustaining and maintaining a relationship, you're talking about the actual fire itself. And so when it comes to fire, you're thinking about what attending to that fire. So that's attention, it's also energy, and it's also fuel, right? So looking at these things. One thing that I will say is that it becomes very normal in long-term relationships to take a back back seat, so to become passive rather than becoming active. And I talk about this in your sexuality and our sex lives as well. We often take a back seat, and we just tend to, you know, in the beginning, we're very open to exploring and discovering. We're figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what we like, what we don't like. And over time, we fall into habits, the things that work for us. And after we kind of form those habits, it's very rare for us to kind of go outside more like, it's very rare to become varied in our habits. We tend to stick to a couple of them that work. And it's also very rare because we're taking a risk when we're stepping outside the box to explore new ways of connecting with each other. So we tend to stick to what is known.
So a couple that work, but then you get bored of that. Is that the problem?
Well, it becomes known. It becomes a habit. If you look at the way you spend your time connecting in a relationship, a lot of us, we're tired when we come home from work. We stick on the TV. We're sitting beside each other on the couch. We're scrolling on our phones. We're watching the TV, and this is a passive way to be in connection with each other. So it's about how can you step back a little bit and look at where you're spending your time and how you spend your time, and how can you be more active in the way that you approach your relationships.
So say there's someone here who's watching right now and all of this is ticking boxes going, yeah, and the time between having sex is getting longer and longer, and maybe they're not engaging with each other as much as they should. It's always spoken about how important sex is in a relationship and that intimacy. So someone might be sitting there watching right now going, how do I approach this with my partner? Because we're both so tired in the evening, and, you know, we're trying to put kids to bed, and where do you find the time and what's going on there? It is, you have to open yourself up to have a very serious conversation, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the first thing is to
I swear to God.
Already.
You have to open yourself up, as you said, to conversation.
But you really do. And I think the thing is, like, taking a very serious look at your relationship. So looking at where you're leaking energy, because we do this often. If you're working an hour late every single day, or every now and again, that's an hour out of your day that you could be taking to spend with your partner, or to spend even with yourself. And I think when it comes to connection, first of all, with sex, we're talking about more than just penis and vagina, right? P and V, which tends to be what we consider to be sex. So learning how to expand your definition of what sex includes will help take the pressure off the situation.
Like
so, well, I would ask you, what could sex include for you? What's your definition of sex, Tommy?
You asked it.
That's a very good question. Thankfully, I'm here to ask questions, Jenny, so you tell me.
Well, what I'd be asking is like, would kissing be included in that? Would cuddling be included in that? Is emotional connection really important in your in your sexual relationship as well? We all have different turn-on triggers, and you know, I can't talk about all of them right now, but what I will say is that, you know, some of us are turned on, it's like a direct desire. So like being very direct in our approach, saying, I want you, I want to do this, even texting beforehand. So there are things that you can approach if you know that you're like that or your partner likes that. Another one would be environmental. So this is maybe that the environment is really important to you. So maybe you need music in order to feel closer. Maybe you need candles or incense or something like this.
Baby shark. That would have done it in your house.
But environmental can also include as well, and this is, I think it's quite funny because a lot of people would ask me questions like this, and I'm like, yes, this is environmental desire. If your house is a little bit messy, if someone is, if cleanliness is really important, so say the bed sheets are washed, the dishes are in the dishwasher, these things that can be really important in a partnership.
That works. Go and clean the house and
because you're
put the dishes away.
That's 2 days in a row. We were talking yesterday about emotional relationships, and the dishes were brought up and cleaning the floor was brought up again.
Yeah, it's called an environmental turn-on trigger.
Right.
So that's why there's some people. I get messages like this all the time, but I know as well, even in my own relationship, my partner defrosted my fridge and told me this in a text, and I was like, I am oddly turned on right now. But it's like that kind of, it's that element of, because sex is more than just the actual act itself. It's about connection, it's about intimacy, it's about support, it's about caring for each other, and there are so many ways that you can do that, you know.
Tommy has to leave. He's got some housework to do, I believe, right now.
To defrost the fridge. How do you do that? I need a YouTube video on that as well. Do you teach that too, Jenny?
That's a terrible nickname. That is so bad. Now, you've got dates coming up. I know you've got loads of dates. There's some dates left in September for Cork and Belfast, I think, is it?
Yeah. So we're actually doing the Sexed Up on tour.
You're all over the place.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring the conversation around Ireland. So we're in Vicar Street for 2 nights, and we're in Cork and Belfast as well.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
And Jenny will sign your cucumber, I believe, from what I've heard
You give out cucumbers on the show, I gather.
Well, we do, sex skills, and some of those are,
if you want to make a salad in Ireland those nights, you can't.
Do guys go as well, though? Yeah.
Yeah, there was loads of men at the show last time. Like, a lot of people brought their partners, but also because a lot of people come to my workshops as well. It doesn't matter who you are or what gender you are. Like, we all have the same questions about sex. We all want to know more. We all want to know how, the kind of like how to satisfy someone, and also how to be more satisfied within ourselves. They're all the same.
How to defrost the fridge. There you have it.
Jenny, it's always lovely to have you in. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. We had all these other
things. What's your social media handle again? I am Jenny Keane.
At Hello Jenny Keane.
Hello, Jenny.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for coming in. There's lots more still to come from Sex Island to Love Island stars. Andrew LePage and Tasha Ghouri talk real life after reality TV.
Plus, we're going to be on the catwalk with some laid-back style. See you back here after the break.
Bridge is over there. Go to front. I'm so sorry.
You've just missed Tommy Bowe running across the studio with a coffee.
How you got away with that, I don't know. Fair play. He was a winger. He was a winger for a reason. Welcome back. Quick, comfortable outfits are key this summer.
And Lorna Waitman joins us now with some pop-on outfits to make your style that bit easier. It's all about easy clothes this morning.
It is, exactly. And I think your style should always be easy. It should never be a chore. So when you've got a really good, succinct kind of list of capsule pieces in your wardrobe, it makes it so much easier to dress. And I think the more you have sometimes, the more overwhelming it gets. So we want to pare it all back into some really simple, easy things to put on. And they're all from The Casual Company this morning.
Lovely. We'll start with Ciara. Yeah.
I'm going to start with Ciara. And one thing that's really been synonymous with the summer has been this style of dress. And it's something I've seen everywhere. So that lovely kind of pretty floral dress is not going anywhere. It stayed around so often. It just shows you how much of a capsule piece it really is. So you can repeat wear over and over again. But the difference with this one is that it has so many different things going on that are kind of camouflaged by the print, but it does so unbelievably well. You've got this lovely kind of mid-length to it, so it means your shoes can change. You can do high heels, you can do flat, so it's a really, really flattering length.
It's elasticated waist, but you can't really see that.
Exactly, that's what I love about it. See, it's almost like it's totally invisible, and you can adjust that waistline wherever you want it. So if you want it to sit a little bit more empire line or a little bit further down, it's really about focusing on comfort. Also, it has a wrap effect on the neckline without the wrap, so you don't get any gaping, which I think is a really important thing, especially when I wear wrap dresses. I'm always a little bit afraid that they're going to gape, and they don't. But with the shoes, we're just keeping it very simple with sandals. Definitely for maybe a little bit more warmer, drier day. But again,
please don't look out your window today.
You can definitely swap these for a pair of runners if you wanted to as well. But also these kind of style of dresses, they're a great layering piece if you wanted to put a denim jacket or a blazer over them as well. They work really, really well.
A mac or a trench, yeah.
Exactly, and accessories we keep very kind of minimal on this because you don't want your accessories to overtake your print. So let the print do all of the work, and these ones are from Dyeberg Hearns. They're very, very simple and lovely. And another great thing about this dress I have to mention is that it does not need to be ironed. It can fold up in a suitcase, popped in a drawer, and it comes out absolutely perfectly. And I think that is
on
such,
holidays,
isn't it?
It's not creased.
Exactly.
Fabulous.
And it's one, if you go on holidays, you can wear over and over again, which is
Look
great.
to is Daniela today.
Now, in case you weren't sick of talking about Barbie, we're still on pink. I'm sorry to say.
I'm getting to the end of it, lads. I don't know if I'm going to... It's not even out yet.
Well, the other good thing about this particular dress is that it comes in other colours as well. But it's really about the shape of this. And it's a dress I've seen a lot of this summer, and actually even in my own kind of maternity style, it's a dress I've been going for quite a flat. So it has a lovely kind of subtle A-line to it. But you'll notice it has a tiered effect. And what's really good about this is that it sits at all of the key parts of your body. So just underneath your bust line, just to the hip, exactly. So it breaks your body up into proportions, but in a very, very subtle way.
Pockets, which you always like.
Yeah, and also another kind of camouflage effect here, because the pockets don't sit out from the body, which they tend to do sometimes in dresses. So they're very, very subtle. And I love pockets in a dress. I think they're great.
Perfect.
So practical. And
little pair of sandals.
Little sandals in a nude kind of colour. So when you're wearing something very vibrant like this, with like really, really bright print, the same would go for greens and blues. Your neutral tone sandal is really, really important as well. But it just allows the whole look to kind of come together too. And the neckline on this as well, it's like a soft square. So it's not as severe as a you know, a really, really kind of linear effect neckline. And it means you can kind of accessorize to whichever way you like. And our earrings, and Danielle can just flicker her hair. There we go, we can see them. Just really subtle gold. And gold and pink are actually a lovely combination. Together, there's a little bit of contrast as well. But again, with a dress like this, you put it on, you're good to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daniela. Sarah is next with our third look today.
Yes, and we got a little bit of a peek of this earlier on. So we're going away from the dresses and into the top and trousers. And it's, again, what I love about T-shirts and jogger style trousers is the fact you can mix and match them so much. So you can create so many different looks out of this. The T-shirt is probably one of the things I would, as a stylist, recommend in your wardrobe to have in several different colours. But this one is like a beigey into kind of a caramel tone. And what's lovely about that is that it's so practical to wear. It's not like white where you can kind of see, you might get marks on it and see it. This one's really lovely. And because it's a heavier fabric, it folds really nicely. I've just tucked it in this morning so you can see.
Stylist tip there.
Just a little stylist tip. Just so you can see the waistband on these joggers. And what's lovely about these.
I love these camel joggers.
Aren't they great? And it's very subtle print as well, so it's not kind of too overwhelming.
No.
And they're a lovely length. They're nice kind of ankle grazer length. So again, you can wear them with a pair of heels and dress it up a little bit with a white shirt if you wanted to. But just to give you kind of a really kind of important thing on these trousers is that they have like a shirred effect. And what that means is that along the waistband, all of the seams have been sewed up together to create an elasticated effect.
Okay.
So you can sit it wherever you want so that you're comfortable. And it's nice and thick so it doesn't move down your body.
I think that they're great. I love the colour on those.
Aren't they great? I really like them.
Runners.
And a little pair of sock runners. These are so good because they're really flexible in fabric, so you can just slide them on your feet too. But when you're wearing this kind of look, I think runners really finish it all off. And they make them look really, really cool. But this is an outfit for any time of the year, not necessarily spring, summer.
Great camo look
Isn't it? And what I love about all of these, and
you were talking about the dungarees making a comeback?
The dungarees are back.
Well, I was expecting a denim, but this is not
And
denim.
you know what, that's funny because I think when you think dungarees, you think denim, right? And that's a very structured fabric and not always very practical to wear. But these are so loose, they're nice and oversized, they've got a lovely little subtle print, and there's a cuffed hem on the bottom as well. So you're not going to get, let's say, that wide leg effect that just sits on top of your shoe. You actually can create a little bit of a stylist
What do
effect.
you think of dungarees?
They look very comfy. I don't know if I'd
comfy.
be like, as a, you know, sometimes when you think about pregnant people and you think that they're always going to be in dungarees, I'm always fascinated by that. Are they not a pain?
No, I actually love them.
Okay,
I
so
will
they
say
are
I love them.
kind
For
of-
me,
okay.
they're dream at the moment. But we've layered a T-shirt underneath these as well that just has a little frill on them. So you're kind of complementing the whole look. And again, back to the runners. I can kind of speak like how important having a pair of runners is part of a capsule wardrobe now. Yeah, and like all of these clothes are from the Casual Company are all designed in Ireland. They're made in Italy. So they're very kind of unique pieces as well.
Absolutely.
Lorna, thank
lovely.
you.
Lorna Waitman.
Pleasure.
Nailed it. Love those. I'm still thinking about the camel pants.
There you go.
Those, they're lovely.
Get them.
Lorna Waitman, thank you
so
so
much.
much.
My pleasure.
For that. Lovely, lovely, lovely.
Now, up next, Love Island sweethearts Tasha and Andrew talk life after the villa. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, fresh from Love Island fame, Tasha Gorey and Andrew LePage are here to tell us everything about life after the villa.
But before we chat to them, let's remind ourselves of their time in Love Island.
The girl that you're gonna couple up with is Tasha.
Do you know what though? Like, you're literally the best boyfriend ever.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Already got that title, yeah?
Yeah. I just want to be kind of tunnel visioned on you at the moment.
Yeah? I do want a tunnel vision on you as well. You mean the world to me, and your happiness means everything to me too.
Before I came in here, I had a goal, and it's fair to say I have achieved that goal. Find the one who I can see a future with.
Oh,
Tasha and Andrew, good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you?
Welcome back over to Ireland again. It's funny watching back that, because Love Island is on at the minute. We discuss it all the time. But that you were part of a really one of the good seasons. Well, how did you get into it? Like, how did the whole getting picked to go into Love Island work?
Well, for me, I kind of got approached on Instagram, but the process was exactly the same applications. Like, it literally took me about, let's say, 4 months, like, for me to even, like, the whole process, like, checks and psych checks, like, everything, like, to really go through it.
Yeah, it was a long process, but yeah, I just applied, did not think I'd get on it in the slightest, and then somehow kept getting on to the next stage, but I don't know how I got on.
Now, when you say you applied, Andrew, were you looking for love or were you looking for fame?
100% love. Like, I'm 28 now, but, like, I was single and I thought, why not? Let's give it a go. I think we all go on thinking we're just going on for, like, just have the best summer of our lives and hopefully we can find love. That is obviously the aim of the game, and luckily I did.
Well, it's still going strong, which is amazing, because we just saw recently Davide and Ekin-Su unfortunately broke up as well. But, like, how has life been, you know, coming out? Because you were in Dubai, weren't you, Andrew, before that?
I was,
and,
yeah, so
like,
it's completely different. Like, yeah, living in Dubai, doing real estate, and then having to move to London. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to, obviously. But yeah, it's just a completely different world now, and it's just, yeah, it's incredible.
And what were the pressures like while you were in the villa and then coming out? Because you went in unknown, and then you came out and all these people suddenly knowing you. And this was the big thing about over the years, like, people not being able to cope with that. So how were you able to cope with that?
I think just being there for each other and communication is the biggest thing for us too. Like, if we're ever feeling a certain way, we be open and be honest about it. It can be so overwhelming sometimes, like going to all these events, premieres, and having to keep on, like, this kind of, like, you're always having to be kind of, you know, up and upbeat kind of. And there'd be days where I'm literally, like, exhausted. I'm just like, I can't do it, like, anymore. But we're there for each other, and, you know, it's all about supporting each other all the time.
Because speaking of exhaustion, because you, because of your hearing difficulties that you had, and you've been very open about it, you were found it quite difficult in the villa. Can you tell us about that?
I think being in the villa is such an intense environment, and I think, you know, you're in the sun, it's literally like 30 to 40 degrees heat. You're, you know, sleep deprived, you hardly sleep, and you're waking up at lunchtime and you're staying up till 4 a.m. in the morning. And for me, I'm having to lip read all the time and focus on people's lips and voices, and there's so many different sounds I'm also trying to focus on, so I get migraines as well. So that's why every time when the girls are getting ready, we probably have about 2 to 3 hours, I've been napping on the terrace, literally the whole 2 hours. And the producers will let me know, Tash, you've got like 20 minutes, and I literally quickly get ready and go down.
You were inspirational on it, Tash, to be fair, because you put up with a lot of crap on the show, and the two of you went through a real journey as well. So it is amazing to see that, like, you've come through it and that you're both still together, and, like, it's great, and it's kind of is a nice story coming out of the Love Island villa, that it doesn't always work out. You, of course, you have your own podcast, Superpowers with Tash, and you've interviewed some really inspirational people on it as well. Why? Because, as Alan said, you have been a real, you've done some incredible things, and the fact that you're highlighting your hearing difficulties.
Yeah. I think for me, even before the show, I had the smallest platform, but I was trying to raise as much awareness as possible. So coming out the show, that's my first priority. Okay, that's not going to change. Like, I'm still going to be doing that. I'm passionate about it. So that's why the podcast, Superpowers with Tasha, it's not just about the deaf community, it's all about other communities out there. So people that are blind, alopecia, I've had literally Tourette's was coming out this week. And it's just all about normalising conversations and talking about stereotypes and stigmas and breaking down those boundaries and the stigmas and making it normal, you know. It's about normalising it and celebrating and
Andrew, you've featured on it as well.
I did, I did. Yeah.
Because you opened up about a brain tumour you had.
Yeah, so, I mean, luckily it was benign, But at the time, like, I didn't even know what benign even meant. So, yeah, when I was told I had this, I was like literally like in tears and like was so scared. But luckily, it got sorted out so quickly. But yeah, I feel like it's so good to like open up about it, because I don't think many people do, especially guys. We don't really open up with how we feel and feelings and stuff like that. So I felt like it's something I had to kind of do and get people more aware.
Well, and listen, good on you. And the podcast is really inspirational as well. So good on you as well. Now, you are in Dublin again today because you're going to be in the Virgin Media store in Blanchardstown today between 2:30 and 4 o'clock, because Virgin Mobile, of course, sponsor Love Island as well.
Yeah.
So if people are big Love Island fans, make sure you get down there to see it.
We've got to ask you, you've been obviously watching this season. What are you thinking about it?
It's like giving situationships. Like, there's so much drama. I'm not seeing love.
No, this is the thing we're saying. There's no real couples. There's no love this year. Do you think the producers have changed it up? Because you know what producers ask you to do. You definitely think they've changed it up this year.
Yeah, they're having a lot of fun and just...
Enjoy,
I think they're giving the public like what they want, really.
Yeah,
with
like
the voting situation.
Drama, isn't it?
Just doing what they want.
Would you have been able to cope with that situation last year? Was that similar?
Oh, I mean...
I don't know. I think...
I feel like it was kind of similar in a way, like with me and you.
Yeah.
But towards the end, it switched.
It was the best, like, the last 2 weeks were the best time for us too, because we just stopped caring. We were like, you know what, we're just going to enjoy it and live it. And that's why the last 2 weeks were the best. But this season's just like giving chaotic. But I kind of love it, because you want to see some couples really get through it.
Yeah, you want to see that. You want to see the love coming out, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, as a viewer, it's amazing.
People can catch you at the Virgin Media store in Blanchardstown today from 2:30 to 4 o'clock. I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of people coming up to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Tash. Andrew. Warren, what else is going... Oh, sorry, we're doing the read what's coming up tomorrow. Liz, thanks so much, guys.
Why is Mirren standing there?
I've been trying to find the shot for the last 5 minutes, so I'm just here. Go on.
Welcome to Ireland AM, guys.
On tomorrow's show, Little Mix singer Leanne talks going solo as she releases her debut single, Don't Say Love. Plus, are you a silky, crunchy or a scrunchy mum? Well,
we'll be discussing that. See you later. See you tomorrow.